Hello, trading is closed on August 26th, 2022. We always start with our disclaimer, go over our calls and make some predictions. It's my trading plan for Monday, which would be August 29th, 2022. Remember, I can be completely wrong. Any trade you make should be at your own risk. Well, we looked for the pattern with the early low, which is this, and Monday's pattern should have the early low. We said that this was a wall with gap pattern, and that most of the time we'd undercut Thursday's late low by Monday's open and find support under that level. We did see the price, but support became resistance as we broke through it. We laid out a possible scenario, said it wasn't the only scenario, of gapping down, topping around 42.05, reversing, and then having a big drop Monday. It didn't quite play out that way, so I can't take any credit for it. We didn't really have the gap down, although we had traded significantly lower before the market opened. It wasn't a gap. I think the high price had some validity. We came within 2 points, and of course the drop didn't come Monday, it came today. So here's what we said. These are my calls for next week's patterns. So close but no cigar on the idea. We do get to cross an old ultimate target off the list, 4079.80. These numbers are not just targets, they're also support resistance levels. I have 3 lower targets from this year. Closest is 4009.41. And today's trade generated 3 higher targets, so MEJT didn't believe this drop. Generated ultimately 4203.05 and also 4157.88, 4111.24. We have a wall into the close, which is a sign of capitulation. Capitulation doesn't have to be over, particularly on a Friday. Usually when you drop like this all day on a Friday, it almost always follows through into Monday's open by gapping down. But if you don't gap down, and if you gap up instead, it's very positive, and all this could be retraced faster than you might think possible. We won't know that until Monday's open. During the day, we got an ultimate buy signal in the morning. Target hasn't printed yet. That's to overtake today's high. Also said this drop was a false move. Says we retrace. Said the afternoon drop was a false move that we retrace. If you look at the introductory chapter to my book, you'll see a pattern kind of like this one, where there are higher MEJT targets, a collapse into the close, and next day you cap up and hit the targets. Whether or not that will happen, no one can say. It all depends on whether we gap up Monday. So how likely is it that all these targets are going to print? Looks like a complete collapse here. Well, every now and then we should go over the track record of the system. Doesn't count this year with a number of unsatisfied targets. I get about 500 standard and 150 ultimate targets every year. It's 650 targets a year on average. System's 20 years old. 13 of those 20 years, every single target printed at some time. The last 5 years, 2020 is the only year with any targets which didn't print. Before 2020, you have to go back to 2016, Before that, 2014. And as far as ultimate targets go, I've got 7 targets over 20 years out of 150 each year, which haven't printed. So ultimately, I think they'll print. Now, as far as whether we'll go in the meantime, I can't say. Well, let's look and see how this collapse changes the picture. That we showed. Well, this is the E-mini contract. You'll see how volume spikes don't always occur at the exact low, but they can occur close to lows, if not at the exact low. So the volume spike is a sign of capitulation. We also dropped all day, and after hours collapsed significantly. That's a further sign of capitulation, as is the fact that we closed at the exact low of the day. It means everyone is saying, get me out at any price. They just say sell, sell, sell. Obviously, it's the institutions who aren't doing the selling. It's the specialists who are buying from people who are giving market sell orders, creates a big wall into the close. And usually when there's a wall into the close, not always, but usually the specialists who are forced to buy make certain they get their money back and get it back pretty fast. Here's where we stand in the long-term count. Here's the daily count. I don't know the degree of these waves, but I have this in a 4th wave down, and if that's the right count, this price will hold wave 1. Of course, the count could be wrong. You don't know that. And we talked about playing Fibonacci ping pong between the 250-day moving average, and that's now around 4,000. This is a major trend line in somebody else's work. We stopped right at it. My rule is you gap under the line or the line wins. If you don't gap under this Monday, we drop right to it but not through it. If you don't gap under it, I would expect any move under it to retrace if you trade under it at all. Doesn't mean it has to retrace immediately. Well, here was the end of that 5 waves in wave 3. We've completed A and B, and the question is, I don't think we've completed C because there's no relationship between C and A, but could we have completed A of C? We're talking about B being complete, and is this A of C? Well, there is a count which explains it. You can count this as 1, 2, 3 with the collapse continuing, but if that happens, I won't see my targets. In order to see my target, this would have to be an ABC as a completed pattern. And for now, at least, it's a plausible count. The fibs all work, but we have to stop here if it's going to work. Won't know that until Monday. I have mixed signals. I doubt any of the common things are going to print, but we'll see. Monday's pattern has a really low. It could still gap up. The signals are mixed. It's negative. We dropped all day on a Friday. Nearly always it's carried over into Monday's open. Nearly always. But it's short-term bullish if we gap up smartly instead. And I'm not ruling that out. It's bullish. We have higher targets. The NASDAQ McClellan oscillator could have been reversed. Could have had its buy signal from yesterday reversed, but it didn't. It's still on a Bollinger Band reversal buy signal. The volatility index is over its upper Bollinger Band. We close at the exact low of the day. It's called a Hobson close. It's a sign of capitulation. Often you'll gap up the day after a close like this. Today had the largest range and biggest volume of the whole decline. Very often the day with the largest range is the last day of the drop. Very often the biggest volume is the last day of the drop, and I can have a wave count which counts this decline as complete. Someone else has a good methodology. It isn't perfect, but at the price we closed at is a possible low of day in his methodology. If it holds within a few pennies, it should lead to a good rally. So bears need to follow through Monday for this decline to continue unabated. That means they have to gap under today's low. If we gap up Monday instead, if that happens, it's pretty positive. It would be even more positive if we traded much lower outside of regular trading hours and recovered it all at the open. So we have plenty of signs of capitulation here. Plenty. It doesn't mean the capitulation's over. But if it is over, the odds are very good we gap up and could have a good rally. This will be undercut at some point. But if we gap up, there could be a good rally. And if we gap under this, then a lot of these signals don't work and you don't have to guess. You can wait to see how we open, to see what happens. Monday's pattern has a really low chance this gets reversed if we gap up. But if not, don't fight it. And that's today's call.